Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
The revolution is not a social dinner, a literary event, a drawing or an embroidery. It cannot be done with elegance and courtesy. The revolution is an act of violence. Mao Zedong.
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio, the podcast that treats cinema like a religion, as it should be. It's Sunday. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Lewis.
And we are here to talk about movies. This is the sixth in a special series of episodes where we are going through the filmography of Sergio Leone. Normally each week, Lewis and I alternate picking a film for both of us to watch and discuss. But for the next few episodes, it's all about Leone. And for the last few episodes, it's all been about Leone. We're in the middle of a Leone sandwich right now.
That's right.
Or at the end of it.
So sandy.
So today we're talking about Duck, You Sucker, 1971, a.k.a. A Fistful of Dynamite, a.k.a. Once Upon a Time, The Revolution, a.k.a. Giù la Testa, which also means keep your head down or get out of the way. This film stars Rod Steiger, James Coburn, and of course directed by Sergio Leone. This film is all kinds of whack, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in the biography about this film. The biography on Sergio Leone written by Christopher Frayling that I've been going through, and we'll get into that as we get into the episode, but for now we want to say thank you to everybody that has been listening to the show. It's in full swing now. It's been like 6 months. Lewis and I have been doing this every Sunday and slowly starting to get a congregation of Film Church people together. So we want to say thank you to everybody who's been listening. Subscribe to the show, hit the bell so you get notified, and you can follow us on all the social medias at Film Church Radio. And of course, if you feel so inclined, give us a review, and we'd really appreciate it. So before we get into this movie, we always talk about what we've been watching this week, just to kind of catch up, see what how our film journey is going. Yeah. And Lewis, what have you been watching?
It's been a bit of an eclectic week this week. So I know that we talked last week, and I said I was about halfway through Bergman Island, which I finished just after we finished recording. And I really enjoyed it. Again, it's on Hulu, about two directors that are married that go to Ingmar Bergman's kind of retreat on this island, and just kind of, I don't know, just like work on their projects, which I found really entertaining. As, you know, a film buff and someone who wants to live like that, it was great to see other people like living the dream. You know, there was like, oh, we're going to watch this film tonight in the screening room. I've got to go and give a lecture on this film tonight. And it's just like, my God, this is perfect. So after I watched that, I was like, I've got to watch some Bergman. So I watched Persona. There's a lot of Bergman that I haven't watched. A lot of Bergman that I haven't watched, so I own the box set. So I went with the most popular on Letterboxd, just to kind of, you know, go in and kind of be like, okay, show me what you've got to offer. And Persona is incredible. Yeah. So it tells the story of an actress who loses her voice and gets paired with a nurse, and this nurse kind of is looking after her. But it starts in a very unconventional way. It's kind of chopped together of a lot of images that are quite off-putting and kind of a bit weird and like surreal. And then it kind of gets into the story, and there's like all the way through it seems to weave between like a dream, reality, you know. And it's just mesmerizing. That's like the whole time. Just like, I can't believe what I'm watching. This is, to say how simple it was, you know, it's very gripping and kind of takes you with it. And I just can't wait to watch more. Sweet. I think that this is a good indication of what's to come, especially since so many people loved it. And he made so many films. So there's a lot to kind of get your teeth into. I know it wasn't just one genre. There was a lot of different things that he kind of turned his hand to.
Yeah.
You know, in the Bergman Island, they talk a little bit about film. They're like, oh, is that the one where the killer like kills him with a rock, like smacks him over the head with it? I was like, I want to see that. That sounds really interesting. You know, just from that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm excited to watch more. And I know that in my in our review of the year, I said my goal for this year was to deep dive into a director. I've been doing it with Kurosawa, but maybe Bergman towards the end is kind of the second half of the year. I don't know. And then I watched Naked with David Thewlis, a British film, which is kind of, it set me up for this a little bit because it tells the story of like a guy who's very into kind of conspiracy and like the end of the world is coming, and he's kind of reading the Bible a lot. Directed by Mike Leigh, the great British director Mike Leigh, and it kind of starts with him sexually assaulting a woman. Okay. So we already know what kind of character he is. But David Thewlis is so enigmatic and like plays his character so well that you kind of get swept along with him. And he's just on this like odyssey across London at night, you know, just figuring out kind of what's happening. And it's just, it's really good. It's hard to watch at times, but you know, it's very, David Thewlis' performance is just one of the best I've seen this year.
Sweet.
So one of the criterions that I bought, so now that's tucked away on the shelf comfortably. And then it was date night, so we watched The Lost City, which had just come onto Paramount Plus, onto streaming for free. Yeah. With Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum.
I've been wanting to watch it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, I think that Sandra Bullock is a really good comedian, as is Channing Tatum. Daniel Radcliffe is Daniel Radcliffe. You know, he's kind of a little bit awkward, a little bit high-pitched and like, you know, excitable. But he works, and it's just, you know, it's ridiculous in the best possible way. Not earth-shattering or anything like that, but a good way to spend a few hours. You know, I think my caliber of films like that is if I'm like checking my watch, if I'm rolling my eyes a lot, I'm like, okay, I'm not enjoying this. But with that, I was like, this is fun. You know, there was a few, I laughed out loud a few times, so that's always a good indication. It's a good popcorn movie.
That's what I would expect. That's what it kind of looked like, and you know, we haven't had. I don't know. It feels like we haven't had too many of those lately.
Yeah, just like a good adult comedy. You know, I was saying to Chelsea, the last one I feel like we've had, which wasn't really adult, was like the reboot of Jumanji. That was the last comedy that I was like, wow, that was better than I thought it was. You know?
Yeah, exactly. With like some star power.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think it did really well. It seemed to be in the cinema a lot and came out after Spider-Man when there was not much else there. So I think... I mean, hopefully it did well enough that studios will start putting money into more of these films because they're really good. Yeah. You know, if I see them on Alamo's app, I'm like, me and Chelsea are going to go and see that, you know? Yeah. But that was that. Apart from, Duck You Sucker, that was what I watched this week. What about you, my friend?
Cool. So I did a watch of all the Blade movies.
I saw that. Yeah.
Which I hadn't seen any of them before. You and I, the last couple of weeks, we like I watched Daredevil 2003, and then you watched like X-Men 2000. So now I've gone back even further to Blade 1998, which I guess is kind of one of the first like big budget Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But there's no like Marvel logo on it or anything like that. It's got, you know, Stan Lee's name on it and stuff. Yeah. But like, have you seen any of the Blade movies?
So I've seen Blade 2 when I was very young.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I bought it like secondhand from, I think it was Blockbuster. When Blockbuster was going out of business. Real cheap. And I can remember watching it and just being terrified and not really knowing what was going on because I was far too young.
Well, that makes sense.
But I do want to rewatch them. Like, I do want to watch them.
Blade 2 is directed by Guillermo del Toro.
How did I not know that? That was.
I don't know. I didn't know it either.
That pause was me searching my brain to be like, did I know that? Because I feel like that's the kind of fact that I would know.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, same.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the first one, like,
I was a cinephile from like 6. I was like, oh, Del Toro directed this one. This is the one I want to buy.
And Ron Perlman's in it too.
Of course he is. That's awesome. Yeah.
And there's like lots of little, little hints of Guillermo there. You can kind of see what's coming next.
Yeah.
As far as the stylized like costumes and special effects and stuff like that. But and the first one was really good too. Like I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Like for an action superhero film made in 1998, it didn't feel dated. You know what I mean? There's like a couple of things that kind of dated it, like computer graphics. Like not computer graphics as far as the CGI. I mean, some of the CGI is, I mean, it's dated or whatever, but not even that. It was mainly just like computers that people use and stuff like that dated the movie. But like besides that, like the action is really good. Like the gore, like it's a rated R. It's kind of crazy to think about this. It's like it's Marvel's first like big budget movie, rated R, black superhero.
Yeah, it's rad.
Yeah, it is really good. Like the action is really good. It's a really fun movie. But what I loved about it so much was how gory it was, because they would do like, just really gross stuff, like stuff that you would see in like a Sam Raimi movie. That's awesome. Like just over the top gore where you're like, what the fuck just happened? And it just kept me really into it. And then the second one was kind of a continuation of that, like felt the same tone, same style. Action was still really good. Third one, it wasn't like terrible, but it definitely seemed like they were trying to be all the other action superhero movies that had started to come out. Yeah. So it wasn't like all that gory stuff was gone.
A bit more family friendly.
Not really more family friendly because it's still rated R.
Oh, cool.
But Ryan Reynolds is in it.
Oh.
And he's not terrible, but it's just like it's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, and it didn't really fit as far as what was the other two movies were. Jessica Biel's also in it.
I like Jessica Biel.
Natasha Leone, is that how you say her name?
Mm-hmm.
She's in it. Patton Oswalt is in it randomly. Like it's just like a weird.
I feel like it's not an obscure superhero film until you get Patton Oswalt or Kevin Smith. Like one of the two. I've just added Blade 1 and 2 to my watch list on Letterboxd. So.
Oh, sweet. Well, they're all three of them are on Netflix until the end of May.
Cool. I might watch Blade
2022
after this.
Yeah, it was fun. It reminded me a lot of what you said about RoboCop, which I haven't watched yet.
Yeah, RoboCop.
But then after that, we watched Lucy and Desi, the new documentary that came out. Have you seen it?
I have, yeah.
Amy Poehler directed it. Man, it was so good.
Yeah, I think
such a good.
I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that again diminished it because I live and breathe TCM. I absolutely love TCM.
Yeah.
And they did a series of podcasts about Lucy. And basically from birth, I think it's like 10 episode series from birth until death, about everything. Yeah. So I had listened to that and then I went into this. And it was great to kind of see it because like there was parts that they would obviously describe, but to see it was really great. But I wasn't like, which kind of
there were a few moments for me because I remember like watching I Love Lucy as a kid and really loving the show. And then I think I watched a documentary as a kid about Lucy and Desi. Mm-hmm. And when I found out that they got divorced, I was like devastated.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like heartbreaking.
Childhood trauma for me.
Yeah. And then in this documentary, not to give anything away, but like when you hear Desi like speak about her especially like the award ceremony towards the end. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
It's
yeah, I know.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it really is. And it's just like and it's crazy to like learn like, oh, that show was like short-lived.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 5 years or something. Yeah. And just the impact that they had. I mean, they did a lot of other stuff to impact cinema and film history, but just like the what they're known for, I Love Lucy was just like, the span of 5 years. And in 5 years they went from starting the show to 5 years later buying out RKO.
Insane.
Which is just like, holy crap.
And then when you remove yourself even more and you're like, that's a female and a minority.
Yeah, exactly. All the stuff they did for those demographics is like,
yeah. I know that, it's cliche to be like they changed cinema forever, but they definitely changed TV forever. I mean, the TV shows we have now, sitcoms especially, are filmed the way they are, that multi-camera live audience, because of I Love Lucy. Yeah. We would have caught up, but they did it first. And they did it for a reason. It wasn't...
And they were the best.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't, it's like, can you top I Love Lucy? Probably not.
You watch those clips and it's still incredible.
Yeah.
The grapes, where she's trying to crush the grapes, and just all of it. It's just so, it's her physical comedy. I love physical comedy. Hence why.
And I didn't know she was like, she knew Buster Keaton. I was like, I wanted to learn more about that. I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I think Lucy's she never got a do in Hollywood. I don't think her like dramatic acting is really, really interesting. Yeah, maybe we should pick one of those later after the Leone series is over.
Maybe so. I would be really interested to see some of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everything this week.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good mixture from all of us.
Yeah. Also, if you guys want to listen to our Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness review, it's on YouTube, Film Church Radio YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description, but we just kind of talk about our thoughts on the movie. So
yeah, spoiler heavy. So if you haven't seen it, don't go and check it out until you've seen it. Or you can just play it on mute. Helps the views.
Just just stare at the logo.
Oh my gosh.
But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, Duck You Sucker, 1971. The sixth Sergio Leone film. The IMDb summary is a lowlife bandit and an IRA explosive expert rebel against the government and become heroes of the Mexican Revolution. I don't know if that's exactly what happens. We can debate that.
When you boil it down, I guess that's what they're going for.
Yeah. Define hero.
Yeah.
They kill some people.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get onto that. I just want to, before we start, I just want to say the thing that surprised me with this Leone watch is how quickly these films come out. Because I think of Kubrick and I think of like the 6, 7, 8 plus years between films, especially towards the end, where he's getting the thing he wanted to do, he's making it. These are like a year, 2 years apart. I know we've got one left. I'm like, Colossus of Rhodes was 61. This is 10 years later, and this is the sixth film. It's like, it's so fast.
Yeah, he churns them out. Yeah, he has this really quick body of work, and then a gap, and then Once Upon a Time in America in 1984. So, it's kind of crazy. It's he was probably just riding the wave of his success, I would assume.
Yeah.
So I've been reading the biography.
Yeah.
And the chapter on this movie is really interesting because Christopher Frayling, like, he does his research. Like, he interviews everybody, he talks to everybody, but you get, like, there's so many perspectives
Yeah.
on this film and how it was made and what people thought about it. So he kind of just gives you everybody's story, and you kind of have to decide for yourself what you think is true and what's not true.
Yeah, that's the best kind of biography. I mean, there's so many biographies that I've read where they've tried to lead you one way, but I like it when they make you let you made up your mind. And I don't think I realized just how important Frayling is to the study of Leone until we started watching these films. And so many people are like, he wrote the definitive biography. Like, it's a Bible for Leone fans. Like, this is the book to read. So I'm surprised that it's gone out of print, honestly, because, Leone is so well thought of. But I mean, I don't think we understood just how incredible that find was.
Oh yeah. Me finding it. I lucked out for sure.
Because everywhere, he's everywhere. Every special feature is Frayling. Like there's nobody else that can talk about Leone.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is setting us up well for a podcast on Leone.
Yeah.
Nobody else can talk about Leone apart from us.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot in this book, and I'm getting fragments almost, I guess. I'm trying to take it all in, but it's so much stuff. It literally is like a Bible. But from what I can gather on how this film got made is Italy was in a film boom because of Leone. Like, he, had created the Dollars trilogy, and then Once Upon a Time in the West. All of his films were insanely popular over there, and they were making hundreds of films in Italy. And so there was like a high demand for Leone-esque films.
Yeah.
There had even been an Italian actor who called himself Clint Westwood. And a spaghetti hero named Sam Wallach. But from what I can gather, this film was kind of supposed to be the start of his producing career. Like, he had already been wanting to make Once Upon a Time in America. He was trying to get away from the Western for so long. But because of this film boom, because of like all the film people and producers that he was talking to, they wanted to cash in on this enterprise.
Yeah.
And to have the Leone name on a film would be the biggest cash in, because that's what people wanted. They wanted a Leone-esque film. So he was going to start producing some films while also trying to get his Once Upon a Time in America made. So he was supposed to produce Duck You Sucker. And he was in talks with like several different directors. Peter Bogdanovich at one point was supposed to direct this film, and came to Italy and started working on a script, and then gave like 12 pages to Leone, and then he like hated it and quote unquote fired him. But there's lots of stuff in the book about like what Leone said and what Bogdanovich said. They both contradict each other.
Yeah.
Bogdanovich was kind of his thought was that Leone wanted to direct the film himself, and so was going to like push back on every single person until he was like, I guess I'll have to direct this. But so like, here's a quote from Bogdanovich. He says, "Actually, Sergio wanted me to believe he was a great director. He didn't believe it, which is perhaps why it was so important that those who worked for him did." Which, it kind of sounds like maybe Leone had, with, not just from this quote, but other stuff that I was reading in the book.
Yeah.
Leone had, like, he got really famous really fast. Like you said, he made these films really quickly, and then he just shot to fame. I mean, he was doing press and all over the place. People in America were talking about him. He shot Clint Eastwood to stardom, and I think it took. It kind of seems like, I'm reading into it, but it kind of seems like it overwhelmed him a bit to the point where, everybody's calling him a genius, but he doesn't even quite understand why.
It sounds like imposter syndrome to me. It just,
exactly.
He just doesn't believe that he belongs there. Because I know that a lot of the times that we've been watching these films, a lot of the facts that we found have been like, he took this from American films, or he took this from films that he loved as a kid. So I'm sure, to kind of not plagiarize, but to borrow so heavily from other people and then be touted as, a visionary, something that we haven't seen before, must be very like, what?
Yeah.
Like I'm just taking from what I know, I'm doing the things I've already seen, but just in a different way. I don't, it's, and I think that again, this film, there's a lot of stuff that we've seen in other Leone films.
Yeah.
That he's doing again. Yeah. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve the pundits, because he obviously does. I mean, the films we've seen have been incredible, but it's not. It is a similar thing again.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that like bleeds into it. Sorry to interrupt, but like he feels comfortable making these films, so maybe the whole like, fine, I'll do it, I guess. Like is him doing another Western because he's like, okay, I know I can do this. I know that.
Right.
If I do this film, it's not going to let people down. If I went and did my Jewish prohibition American film,
Yeah. Well, I think too he got to a point where he, maybe when they were in talks to start this film and he was just going to produce, he didn't have any personal connection to it. But then as the script developed and as he got more into the story, he was like, oh, there is something that I personally want to say here. And then he was able to do it. But I mean, he was offered like The Godfather to direct The Godfather, which would have been a totally different movie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Would have been interesting to see, but I don't know. I mean, The Godfather is like my favorite film, so it probably wouldn't be my favorite film if Sergio had directed it, even though I love Sergio, it's like, would have been interesting to see all the quick cuts and zooms.
Just real tight on Marlon Brando's face. The whole film.
Right. But and then at one point he even said that his dream was to remake Gone with the Wind.
Okay. I saw this in the notes and I was like, there's a point in this movie where it goes full Gone with the Wind.
What point?
And it's towards the end. It's when John has saved one, and we see the train is about to leave the station, and we get that big crane sweeping shot where they're killing everybody in the ditches. Yeah, and you think it's just one, and then it's two, and then it's four, and then it's like this whole town behind, and it's very reminiscent of the scene in the most famous scene in Gone with the Wind, where Vivien Leigh comes out, and it just pans back, and there's just like thousands of people, like wounded soldiers, kind of, like on the floor. It just keeps panning back and back and back.
Yeah, he very much wanted to just do bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every film that he did. He couldn't go backwards.
I mean, you can see it with this. It's just...
There was a producer who was like, why don't you just like do like a nice little black and white Italian film that's set in one room? And he's like, what are you talking about? No.
Why would I do that?
Bigger. So that does make sense. Like when I first heard that, I was like, maybe he's just saying that as like, that's what people want to hear, when he's like being interviewed, because people would find it interesting. But I could see why he would want to do something like that, because it's like one of the biggest films and biggest productions ever. Yeah.
I mean, even that film, like it kind of, when you're reading about Hollywood history, it eclipses the year before 39 and the year after 39. Just because of how, like, there was, every actress wanted to play Scarlett O'Hara. There was like a nationwide casting call And then it went on a roadshow, and it was on a roadshow for like years. It was like going to different cities and playing, and like in its full cut. You know, it was the turning point. It was the film.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the wanting to go bigger and bigger and bigger, I think we talked about it on the last show. Just it's like him playing with toys in a sandbox, and this is like he's found some firecrackers for these toys in the sandbox, and it is increasing every time. It's bigger, it's louder. You know, there's more set pieces that get destroyed. You know, you think about A Fistful of Dollars, just set in that one strip of sandy town, and now we've got trains exploding into each other. We've got mountainsides being blown up. We've got thousands of people being murdered.
Yeah,
you know, it's so incredible the difference between these two.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Like, I almost wish that he had done some kind of smaller, intimate film. Yeah, because I do really like when he does flashbacks. Because they're just real simple, like one shot, and he's like telling a whole story. Yeah, you know what I mean. But Fistful of Dollars is probably the most smallest. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this the smallest one we're gonna get because he's no longer with us. But yeah, it. So let's talk about the movie.
Okay.
All right. So the opening of the film is the quote that you quoted at the beginning, where basically saying the revolution is not, this fancy dinner. It's an act of violence.
It's blood and sweat and tears.
Which is kind of what we came to the meaning of like the good and the bad and the ugly, which is also, has this war going on in the background. Yeah. It's like there's not really a point to it. It's just ugly.
Yeah.
But, so that was like the first thing that I was thinking when the movie started. But, yeah, I have all kinds of thoughts about like the opening of this film because it feels like a totally different movie in the beginning. Like it's going somewhere else. Like it opens with Rod Steiger peeing on the anthill. Like I rewatched the beginning, you can see like the silhouette of his like dingling, him like him shaking it off. I mean, it might not have been his real dingling. I would hope it wasn't, but just had a hot dog.
Yeah, just a prop.
Yeah. And then he sees this carriage coming in, and then he goes down and he like begs for a ride. And if you go back and watch that scene where he's like begging for a ride, he looks like a totally different person, Rod Steiger, to me. Yeah. Like the way that because he's acting like he's a beggar instead of like his actual character in the movie. He's not. Yeah. It like almost seems like he's not acting like it's his character begging. He's just acting like a different character. Yeah. Which it's kind of crazy. Like I feel like, before we get into like the story, I feel like Rod Steiger is a really, really good actor.
Yes.
But I could not get over the brown face. Like I just couldn't, I couldn't, like the whole time. I thought he was really good, but the whole time I was just like, you're not Mexican.
Yeah.
You're not Mexican.
Yeah. I think out of the films we've watched so far, this has been the one that has aged the worst. I think there's certain beats in this film that I was like, okay, I'm not into cancel, obviously cancel culture exists for a reason and all that kind of stuff. But, I can still watch things from, like, I've watched a lot of old Hollywood films with a lot of, like, not great things in there. But there's certain things in this film I was like, I just can't like this character anymore. And unfortunately for the Rod Steiger character, it happens 15 minutes into this movie.
Yeah, it's like right away.
And the whole film, I'm just like, I can't get on board with you. Like, same. I don't care.
I think if... And James Coburn was great as well. But I think that, it just... it just messes the whole, like you said, it,
Yeah.
it doesn't age well. It messes the whole movie up. If you had an actual Mexican actor playing the character and an actual Irishman playing the other character,
Yeah.
this film would mean so much now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and on top of like taking the rape scene out, you would have had to do that too.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to like that character. But yeah, I almost want to love this movie, but then I just can't get over some parts of it. So
Yeah.
A few things just about the film from what I saw. Was like the opening sequence. Like, I love the whole opening of this movie. He gets in the carriage.
Yeah.
All the rich people are in there making fun of him and like looking down on him, and there's all these close-ups of them eating and stuff. It reminded me of Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
Yeah.
but like the most Tarantino you've ever seen. Because it's just like nothing but close-up shots of people's eyes and their mouths eating the whole time and just smacking and stuff. Which Tarantino does, but he'll do it tastefully.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this was like, we're going to really make you disgusted.
Well, that's what
Which I was.
That's what
you
I was
know.
going to say. I think that, you know, this kind of scene, you know, the people in the carriage are obviously horrible, and you can't, you know, when they're talking about him and kind of saying derogatory things, you just can't. You're like, this is despicable. I can't believe they're saying this.
Yeah.
But then the film seems to lean into those, and is like, everything you said about me is true, and I'm the person you thought I was.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I'm like, why go that way? Like Tarantino does
Yeah.
that. Like, I think of Inglourious Bastards, just like how he handles a lot of the scenes with, I forget the general's name. Oh my gosh, Christoph Waltz's character,
Yeah.
and how he treats, you know, Jewish people and other people especially, and just how you grow to loathe that character so
Yeah.
much. You know, the scene with the pie and the cream,
Mhm,
especially.
yeah.
And and it's not like any of those things that he was saying were then justified by the character doing exactly what he said. Whereas this, I was like, why? You had such an opportunity for us to be like rooting for this character, to just get his, you know, I don't know, just be appreciated or allowed to live, I guess, without being looked down on. And instead they just go the complete opposite way. And he's like, here are all my sons, and they have all different mothers, and you're going to be a mother. And it's just like, I'm out. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't do it.
And then too, it's like, okay, why? And so, yeah, it's like, why? You know, why is this scene here?
Yeah.
You know, why is there this scene where he, presumably, like, we don't see him rape the woman, but we get pretty close to it. You know, and they're in this arena that looks like the, you know, the arena from Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And it's like, okay, so it is Sergio Leone at the beginning of this film. Like, it opens with the guy pissing on the ant farm.
Yeah.
Is he like pissing on his films?
I mean, I feel, I don't know how to say this properly. I feel that we've had an anti-hero, and we've talked about anti-heroes in these films, how none of these characters are like, you know, good. You know, the good and bad and the ugly should have just been the ugly, the ugly, the ugly. We've said that.
Yeah.
I think this is just that he's taken that one step too far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not killing kids, but he is doing pretty much everything but.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
and it's just, I understand, you know, people are messy and people aren't necessarily good and evil, but there are certain things that a good person would never
Exactly.
do.
Yeah, it's like you can't, like, no matter, because the film is almost like trying to redeem this character of Juan throughout the story, right? He actually has like a character change through the film, which a lot of Leone's characters don't. You know, they're just that character. but you just, I can't get on board with it. Like
Yeah.
how do you get on board with a rapist? Like you
Exactly.
can't,
I feel a lot of the stuff that he does as well is just unnecessary. Like I think on the train with the conductor where he just like kicks him out of a moving train. I'm like, that is just so unnecessary. Like that's just unnecessarily like and
rude.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm just like, what if that guy had a family? He's just trying to make ends meet. He's working during a revolution. Just give him a minute.
But okay, like there are like certain parts of this movie that are, like this movie is just whack. Like again, like he's about to rape this woman, and then all of a sudden it cuts to like this man's ass with his like clothes getting ripped off, and it's like, what the? Yeah. It was a great cut,
Yeah.
but I wish it was like a different scene.
Yeah.
But like, what was I gonna say? Like, I don't know. There's still a lot of really cool stuff. Like a lot of stuff to love, like the characters, like all the great stuff about Leone is still here. You know what I mean? It's like the characters are really great. When John shows up on the motorbike and then, is demonstrating all the dynamite.
Yeah.
And then Juan sees like the National Bank sign over his head. Like I loved that. Like that was that felt very like Tarantino-esque. Like you can tell like the parts that Tarantino took. Yeah. For his stuff. The music is incredible. It's so inventive to me. It feels like, even though he is rehashing a lot of the same kind of plot points and stories in a way. I just love his style, I guess.
Yeah,
is what I'm getting at. And when he, right after that scene during that scene when John is like going back to his bike and he's like, "You're going to fix my bike and I'm going to wait." I was like, that's that scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like that's when when the guy pops Brad Pitt's tire and he's like, "Now you fix it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it felt just like that to me. What did you feel about like that scene? I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Okay.
Like after the scene of like after the rape scene where you just like totally out of it, like you just couldn't
with one. Yeah. I think so. It's the rapes in the way that's handled. I mean, the line, "Don't pass out, you'll miss the best bit," I think is forever going to be like engraved in my head. It's like that is just one of the worst things that I've seen, kind of thing. And then it just doesn't really get any better, because then after that he puts her on a wagon, throws them down a hill, and just leaves them. And then his friend gets blown up, and he's just playing around with his hat. I didn't like one. Yeah, I'm gonna say I didn't care about one at all.
Yeah,
didn't care about anything that happened to him. John, on the other hand, I like John. I thought that his character was more interesting. I like the backstory, how it kind of, again, how it's interweaved very slightly. It's like trickled down to you. So you know something that's happened in the past, but not sure like how he got to this point. And he's not, I mean, he does work for the IRA, or not work for the IRA, but he's, a terrorist in a way.
Yeah.
But he is better than one. If that's any one doesn't care about blowing up the silver or gold merchants that he brings down to frame John. John is like, great, now I'm wanted for murder.
Yeah.
He's a better character to latch on to, I guess. And I did enjoy, especially with the prison. I know we're going to get into the prison scene, but when one is kind of escaping from the prison and sees John, and John's like, "Yeah, they emptied it out like years ago."
Yeah,
I really did like that. Just he's just playing with them at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we talked last week about female representation in film, and this week it hit me. I was like, Leone isn't about love; he's about friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These films are not, they're films about male bonding.
Yeah.
In the most extreme times. And this film just cemented it. As soon as I realized that, this film made so much more sense to me.
Yeah.
It's about finding, I don't want to say a soulmate because that sounds stupid, but finding like a like-minded individual that you can spend your time with.
Yeah. Yeah. He mentions that in the book. Trying to find where I put it, but he basically mentions that, with this film, he finally got to do like a more of a friendship story that he had been wanting to do.
Yeah.
That's what the film was about to him.
And I know that we're jumping ahead, but that last line is so great.
Which one?
What about me? You just, like that just, again, just sums up that, they've kind of bumbled their way through this. They haven't necessarily intended to do anything of the things that they've done. It's just kind of happened. And you get that whole feeling that his luck's probably run out. Like, he's not going to be, around much longer. Everything else is gone. What's he got left? Nothing. Yeah. Like, he's been reduced to nothing, really, And maybe that's the point of the film. Maybe it's just, hey, I know you hate one, so we're going to take everything away from him.
yeah, maybe. It's like, because his whole family dies.
Yeah.
Like, and it's pretty brutal.
And he never gets the money. I mean, so far, when people have been going for the gold, it's not there, right? They've just moved it. So they don't know where it's gone. They moved it to make room for cells. But Good and Bad and the Ugly, for a few dollars more, Once Upon a Time in the West, they all end up with the quote-unquote gold, like what they've been trying to get. And in this, it's different. He ends up with nothing, not a thing.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting trade.
Yeah. Christopher Frayling talks about in one of the documentaries about how there's tons of references to like World War II. Like, Leone grew up in Nazi occupied Italy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of references to that time and a lot of stuff. It seemed like a lot of the stuff in the movie, like, Italian audiences really understood it more than American audiences. Especially the scene with the bodies in the cave, because there was a massacre where they killed hundreds of people and left them in a cave like that.
Because the opposing troops are very Germanic.
Mm-hmm.
The officer is like, he's thin and like straight, and you can, I don't know if I'm describing this very well, but you can see his cheekbones. He's just very, he looks Aryan to me, and for a second I had to bring myself out and be like, what time frame is this? Is it the 40s? But
Antony St. John is the actor's name.
Okay.
Colonel Guttries. Yeah, he stood out to me a lot. He's not in the movie a ton, but there's a couple of scenes where it was funny to me the way that Leone made him disgusting.
Oh,
it's like when he like cracks the egg open and he's like sucking on the egg. I'm like, who does that? You're evil.
I tell you who does that. The egg lady from Pink Flamingos. That's who does that, Brandon.
You're like, not again.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Wait, was Pink Flamingos 71?
Was it 71?
What is it with eggs that year?
Oh, my God. Was there Let's have a look.
71 or 72. It's one of those.
I typed in oink flamingos. That's not right. 72.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe that was an inspiration for John Waters. Maybe he saw this and was like, oh, eggs.
But then somehow Leone also makes brushing teeth equally as disgusting. Because when that guy is brushing his teeth, you're just like, when are you going to die?
I wonder if Leone had a thing with mouths, especially. Like, he just found them disgusting because, in the carriage scene, people are eating and they're talking with a mouth full, and you can see it kind of like swishing around in there. There's the opposition officer guy.
Yeah.
I'm not very good with names today. I'm sorry.
You're good.
There's, brushing his teeth and constantly drinking eggs. I mean, maybe he's just maybe he's just grossed out by mouths.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I am after this film.
Yeah. Never cut to the mouth.
Yeah. Another T-shirt.
Oh man. So did you read that Eli Wallach, like he wanted Eli Wallach for one?
Yeah. I read that. So he offered it right, and then Wallach kind of walked out of a role, but they'd already cast somebody else. Is that right?
I think the studio just wanted someone more famous.
That might be Once Upon a Time in the West.
Okay. Which Rod Steiger was, he had won an Academy Award at this point for In the Heat of the Night, supporting actor. Which is weird. Like, I've seen that, and he plays like a police officer who's like borderline racist.
Yeah.
And then to see him like play a Mexican is so weird. It's so weird, but I'm almost glad Eli Wallach didn't do it, because it's like I wouldn't want to hate him.
Yeah, I mean, Eli Wallach kind of did it in The Good and Bad and the Ugly, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
But
mean,
it
he already,
wasn't-
like they wrote this part for Eli Wallach.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, let's take that character and just go even crazier and more over the top with him.
Yeah, Tuco was not a good person, but he still, like, his relationship with Blondie was something that was really great, and you could see, I think that's something that's missing between Juan and John, is that him and Blondie, there was always that like I hate you, but I need you, Whereas with this, it was like, I don't know what kept them together. I wasn't sure what it was that kind of kept them keep going back. Whereas I think in Good and Bad and the Ugly, they really kept that tight. That storyline was like they just couldn't escape each other.
Yeah, because it's a little hard to believe. Like, I get that the movie is aiming for that theme of friendship, but it's a little hard to believe.
Yeah, that first hour is just it's just Rod Steiger's character like trying to escape, right?
Yeah.
He's just trying to get away from Juan. He's trying, like, he jumps on the train, he rides away on his motorcycle. He's just like, leave me the F alone. And then by the end of the film, he's like, we got to do it for Juan.
Yeah.
And just because he lost his family, do you think that's the tipping point? He's like, okay, this guy needs me to help him.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because they both lost loved ones, so they can like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so there is like this underlying theme with the James Coburn character, where you're constantly seeing flashbacks. The first one is him riding in a car, like his friend is driving, he's in the passenger seat, his girlfriend's in the back, and it's like super slow motion. The music comes in, it's mostly one shot, and then they start kissing, and the friend is like, hey, stop it, I'm trying to drive. Being the third wheel in the driver's seat. Whatever that means. But I really liked that first flashback. I was like, when that came on, I was like, oh, this is really good. I like something with the music and just the slow motion and the way they shot it.
It's so jarring to see greenery.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so like, wait, where are we? Like, who is this?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was also jarring to see a vehicle, to see the motorcycle when
Yeah.
that came in. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, a vehicle, weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get that flashback, and then you get later on you get another flashback where he's thinking back to the revolution, I guess, in Ireland.
Yeah.
Which I don't know my history, so sorry if I'm getting any of this stuff wrong, but it's like another revolution back home for him. And his friend that was driving the car in the other scene is coming in with officers, and he looks like he's been tortured or beat up or whatever. And they're pointing at people, and he's like shaking his head yes or no. So he's like giving people away or whatever. And I think it cuts there, and then you go back to that scene later where you see John the Irishman turn around with a gun, and he shoots his friend and the officers, right?
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the movie, when John is dying, he's on his deathbed, he flashes back to another scene with him and his friend and his girlfriend, and they're running. It's slow motion. They're running along in a field. They come to a tree, and him and his girlfriend, they start making out. And it's super slow motion, so it's like it's. I'm sure when they shot it, it was a lot faster, but in slow motion, it's like, wow, they're making out a really long time, and their friend is like. My thought was like, man, their friend is really the third wheel here.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, never mind. He's not.
Yeah.
Because then, the girlfriend starts making out with his friend, and you realize, oh, there's like a menage a trois thing going on here.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what does this have to do with the theme of friendship? Because it has something to do with it. Obviously, like that's his friend. Then he had to kill his friend, so it's got something to do with like betrayal.
Yeah.
And loyalty or whatever. And I'm like, so what? Was it just that Juan was like loyal or something to John?
I guess that he just wouldn't like he knew that Juan would not turn anyone else in. He got captured. He just wouldn't give anyone else up. He was like against the firing wall and was like, okay, I guess this is my time. So I guess he kind of knew that he wasn't like the Doctor. He wouldn't turn on them. He was like good. He was fighting for the right thing, I guess. But yeah, I don't understand the whole love triangle three-way thing going on. I did get those vibes from the car ride. I didn't anticipate her turning her head and like making out with the driver. But I just don't understand why. Maybe that's the only way they could fit a female in that wasn't being sexually assaulted. Because, there's no other female characters in this apart from her. You could have easily, there could have been those homosexual undertones, but it could have just been those two guys.
Right, yeah.
And then you could have, like, it wouldn't have to be explicit. And maybe it was easier to make those kind of comments if there was a female in it as well.
Yeah.
In this period of
when the film came out in America, they took that out.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So, like, the version that we see now is, like, the version that, like, the Italians saw.
Yeah.
So, the American version was cut down, but, yeah, so, I don't know.
I felt, up until this point, because we've seen this 3 or 4 times now, in the Leone filmography is, somebody's past kind of being trickled down to us, the viewer. And each time I feel like it's become less satisfying. That first time with Lee Van Cleef's character, at the end you're like, oh God, okay, cool. Like he has a reason. And then in Once Upon a Time in the West, you're like, yeah, like he has a reason, but I don't know, like how he ended up here. And then with this, I was like, I don't understand how this correlates. Like I don't. Yeah. Like there's just too much here,
I think there is some deeper meaning going on there, and we've touched on it a little bit, but also there's a lot still there. I think this is like the Leone film that I'm so unsure about. Like I want to say that I'm gonna like it more the more I watch it, but I don't know.
Yeah,
like I
think
it's hard to watch Rod Steiger. Like he's such a presence. Like he's a good actor, but like it's like his.
And he plays one really well. I mean,
but it's just the character is so much.
Okay, I want to just go back. He does not play one really well. He plays the characteristics really well. Because I think to play one really well, you would need to be Mexican.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of that descent. You would need to kind of. I don't want to say that he did a great brown face or anything like that. But
but he's.
Yeah, like
he commits hard.
Yeah,
and
his speeches are good. The way he delivers lines are really good. There's a lot of emotion in his face. He does a good job. But
this film is almost like it's just almost there. It's like if the actors have been different. Especially just that one, but and then the rape scene had been taken out, and then I don't know. It might have just dialed. Whatever it was trying to do in a little bit better.
This is the first Leone film that I just it felt the length that it was for me. I know that last week we talked about him kind of referencing himself and reusing stuff. This just felt like the whole scene with Tuco and Blondie with the bridge just elongated into 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was just. I understood where he was coming from and stuff like that, but it just did not work for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was the first one that I was like, this is not like a film I would go back and watch again. Yeah.
I would, ever?
I mean, never say never. There might be a time, but if it was a choice.
I would go back for it I would go back for it just to study, the techniques, how some of those shots were put together.
Yeah, there's things of beauty in this film. Yeah. There's things, I talked about that shot that's Gone with the Wind, where it's kind of panning across and moving back. It's just, that is astounding. And
I did like the music a lot. I would go back to it for that.
Morricone is just, I don't know,
always killing it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I just can't. I can't get past the things that have dated poorly. And not even that they've dated poorly. I don't think that at this time in Hollywood, in history of cinema, that rape was acceptable. Or even,
No. Yeah.
Not acceptable, because I know that's a very... I can't get my words right today, but just... I just don't know how that came about. I don't know why that was put in.
Yeah, because it's played like it's a comedy moment, and it's what's...
Because if that hadn't been put in, and we'd missed that scene out, and they'd stripped everyone, wore their clothes and put them on a wagon, and I would have been like, yeah, okay, good, because they were awful people.
Yeah,
they probably deserved this. But that scene, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah,
I know we've talked about it a lot, so I apologize.
It's the point of the movie that it's hard to.
Yeah.
It's the most problematic part of the movie. It is the most problematic part of the movie.
Yeah.
That and brownface is just
I did enjoy Coburn's character, though. I think that he's just surrounded by so much haze for me, though.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the fact that he was kind of going with the flow, that he seemed very... even him riding in with his goggles and he's kind of whoops, and his handkerchief over his mouth and stuff is pretty comedic to me. I find that really funny. Just the image of him kind of, driving around.
He's such a good character, in the, in a Leone way. He knows how to create these characters and costume them right.
Yeah. And when he actually says, "Duck, you sucker," he says it the way I want, that I've been saying it before I saw this film. I think they say it twice, right? John says it,
I think,
and then
3 times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because didn't he originally want to call it "Duck, you asshole"? But they told him they wouldn't. I think I read that they told him that America would not release it if he called it "Duck, you asshole."
There was a lot of different things. I think originally there, like the title, as I said in the beginning of the show, has gone through many different iterations. I think the Italian phrase "Giù la Testa" is actually shortened. I think the whole thing was "Giù la Testa Coglioni" or something like that, which means like keep your duck your head in balls or something like that. Like, it's very confusing, all the different iterations of the title, but I did read in the book that Leone thought that "Duck You Sucker" was an American saying. And one of the producers was like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "You must not be American. Like, you don't know what you're talking about."
Listen to me. I'm an Italian. I know.
Yeah, exactly. He like really thought that "Duck You Sucker" was like something that people said. And you can kind of see that in the movie, or maybe he thought that like this was going to become something that people would say. He's like, after they see this movie, like they're going to say this all the time because it's such a badass line.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, he had that big ego too. He was not going to be told like what to not put in his movie.
I mean, we've talked about his titles already. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Once Upon a Time in the West, A Fistful of Dollars. They're not generic titles. Yeah, they're very evocative. So I'm sure
I do like the title of "Duck You Sucker."
Yeah,
like I think it's great. But after, I mean, I think Once Upon a Time, the Revolution would have made more sense as his like Once Upon a Time trilogy. But I'm almost glad that it wasn't named Once Upon a Time, the Revolution, because I don't think this film. I wouldn't want people to really seek this film out and watch it.
Yeah, I think
honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you just? I just don't understand a lot of the stuff. Like, I know that Once Upon a Time in the Revolution, very similar to Once Upon a Time in the West, A Fistful of Dynamite, Fistful of Dollars. At what point does he stop ripping himself off? Do you think?
Well, okay, so "Duck You Sucker" was the name I think that he wanted.
Yeah.
But everybody was telling him it was dumb, which it ended up being dumb because, well, in terms of marketing, because nobody saw the movie in America. It did fine in Italy, but like he was using an Italian phrase that people knew.
Yeah.
In the Italian version. And then, so in America, it was the producers that named it A Fistful of Dynamite because people would know that was like, because it was marketable.
Makes a lot more sense, yeah.
And then Once Upon a Time, the Revolution was the French title, and it also did really well in France. So it's kind of crazy how much a title can help the movie, but yeah.
I did think it interesting what you pulled up here about Coburn working with Leone, like kind of leading on from that, just that he had been talking to Henry Fonda and just asked him like how he liked working with Sergio, and Fonda said that he was the best director he's ever worked with. Which I find, especially when he's playing against type, he's not the Henry Fonda that we know, but he is, but he's like the villainous version. Yeah, and then Coburn obviously does it, and it opened as Duck You Sucker, nobody went to see it.
Yeah,
which is a real shame, Yeah. But I think that's just, that's great. That Fonda thought how great he is.
So highly.
Because we could tell that, Fonda got a lot of the, like, he was the main character really in Once Upon a Time in the West. He got a lot of like the big scenes because of course he's an A-list star, but just that faith from each other. Like Leone's like, okay, just do what I'm asking you to do, and I'd tell you it's going to pay off, and it did. And that's the sign of a good director, is seeing that. I mean, I love Hitchcock, so Hitchcock Strangers on a Train with Robert Walker. Robert Walker was like the boy next door, and Hitchcock was like, There's something sinister in there, and he tapped into it, and Bruno is terrifying.
Yeah.
So, the great directors can get that from people.
Yeah, Leone did work with Fonda again as a producer, I think, on My Name is Nobody.
Okay.
So Leone did have an extensive producing career after this film. This is kind of, to me, this is kind of the start of his producing career, even though he doesn't have a producing credit on this. It was like he was supposed to produce this and then became director. But he produced 7 films after that. In between this and Once Upon a Time in America, he produces 7 films, so which is the same amount of films that he directed. So,
wow, that's crazy.
For the next 7 weeks, no, I'm just kidding. We're gonna skip Once Upon a Time in America. No, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna watch those movies. Yeah. I mean, maybe at some point we'll watch them, but maybe not for Film Church.
Yeah.
But yeah, there. It's easy to see how much better this film could have been if the circumstances had been a little different. I mean, even Rod Steiger was the production company's choice. Like, Leone didn't pick him at all. Like, he wanted Eli Wallach. He wrote the part for Eli Wallach. And they were like, why don't you get someone famous so we can market the movie? And it didn't do them any favors because no one went to see it, you know what I mean? Which is so dumb. But, Steiger was a different kind of actor. Like, he came from the actor's studio. He wasn't necessarily method or whatever, but he was very, like, he had his own process. Like, he wanted to do very short takes.
Yeah.
I mean, not short takes, but a low number of takes. Like, he didn't believe in doing more than 4 takes because you would lose, like, some spontaneity. Whereas Leone was someone who did a lot of takes.
Yeah. Because the actor studio is a very kind of new era Hollywood thing that came up with the 60s, the 50s and 60s, Marlon Brando and people like that. And... the people he's worked with before, Fonda, Lee Van Cleef, all these, not necessarily Clint, but these people have obviously been brought up in the studio era where you stayed on set until you got the shot. And it could have been, you are paid to do this work. It doesn't necessarily matter if you can act or not because you've got a studio behind you backing you and like paying for all this publicity. And then there's that shift towards, I need to feel every emotion. I need to kind of embody this character to play this character. And I can imagine that for Leone, it just didn't sit very well with him. But I mean, we talk about.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we just talked about in the other episodes about how he'd wanted Fonda for the longest time, and he finally got him in Once Upon a Time in the West, and it seemed like the stars had aligned for that film. I think if he'd been in any earlier, it just wouldn't have worked as well. If he'd played those Clint characters or the Lee Van Cleef character, it might not have been, as memorable as Once Upon a Time in the West. Whereas with this, it is just like karma is kind of it's evening out. He got someone he didn't want, that didn't really help the film.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also sounds like, I mean, I'm reading into this a little bit, but in the book, it sounds a little bit like Steiger was a lot like his character in the movie, like very annoying, and just drove like Leone crazy. And they got into it a few times, and like I said, the book goes back and forth. It like gives all these different perspectives. So like, there's a point where in Leone's perspective, he's like trying to shoot this scene, and Rod Steiger is like, no, it's time to go home. Like, we're done for the day. And Leone, this is Leone's words, said that he said, if I want to shoot for 24 hours, I will do so, and I don't give a damn that your name is Rod Steiger and that you won an Academy Award by mistake, because you're nothing but a piece of shit, and I cordially invite you to go fuck yourself and United Artists.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, that doesn't sound like someone that's enjoying him being on the set.
Yeah, but then, like, in Steiger's version, He's like, he didn't say any of that, and I left the set.
So
I went back to my hotel. Like,
and that was
so,
Leone said that he said that.
Yeah, Leone said that
So
was what he said.
He was just. You think that was like what he wanted to say?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I see that you put here that Steiger remembers nothing else after that. They would just leave each other alone, and I'm like, yeah. But again, that doesn't sound like two people that were happily
getting
working.
along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because even at one point, Rod Steiger even like apologized and was like, if you want me to leave, if you want me to leave, and I'll go, and I won't. I don't know, whatever it was with the contracts or whatever. He's like, I won't
dispute it.
Yeah, dispute it or whatever. I know you're not who I wanted for the character, and then they kind of like squashed it and got along after that and just made the movie. But yeah, it could have been a really like just a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like I want it to be a hidden gem. I kind of want to show this movie to people because there are things in it that I'm like that I like.
Yeah. But you got to remember where we came from as well, though, Bran, because like we started this and we knew that the Dollars trilogy was huge. We knew that Once Upon a Time in the West was massive. We saw Colossus of Rhodes and we're like, I think we found a hidden gem. I think this is a film that people haven't really talked about. So when you get to another one that people don't talk about, I was the same way. I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to see something that people haven't seen before, like I did, Colossus of Rhodes, maybe. And it just, And then I was looking at like reviews and people love it. Some people really love this film.
Yeah.
And they say that it's beautiful and like all about
all about friendship.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just know films have done it better. I feel like Once Upon a Time in the West did it better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I know that you can't necessarily top Once Upon a Time in the West because that is just a phenomenal film, but I don't know why you would try as Leone. I don't know why you would go down this road. I know that the Mexican Revolution is different. And like I said, I do enjoy the fact that they're bumbling their way through and kind of saving, doing some good. That part I really enjoyed, but it does feel rehashed again.
Yeah, there was something in the book that said, it made a lot of sense because it was like basically saying that this was like he was trying to get out of the West and get to
America,
a different type of America, and cinema, which you can kind of see because it doesn't really feel like a Western to me. It starts out like one. The opening is very Western, but then it kind of gets out of it a bit.
Yeah.
There's no like cowboys,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just trying to get to Once Upon a Time in America, I think.
Yeah. You can tell that with this and Once Upon a Time in the West. The same drive isn't necessarily there. Not Once Upon a Time in the West is still a great film,
Yeah.
But you can just see it's the same thing, but angled a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that well is kind of at this point well and truly dry, I think.
Yeah.
For Leone.
I think he was trying to do something different. Like not necessarily different, but he did recognize that like he was approaching scenes that he had done before, and then he tried to do something different with them. Yeah. But yeah, it's just not quite there. There are a couple of things that I wrote down that I did like in the movie.
Yeah.
Besides all the stuff that we already talked about, a couple more things was like whenever John gets shot and he's like, shit.
There's a lot more swearing in this film than I'd been used to in previous.
Yeah, because he like says "go fuck yourself" at one point, and he like gives him the finger too.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like a little more modern.
Leone gone wild.
Yeah, yeah. And then when Juan is like shooting the general guy, and is like shooting his body with the machine gun, and his body just like keeps getting dragged further by the bullets. It was like, this is like a video game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he like, when Juan goes up to John, when John has like been shot like 3 or 4 times, he's like, "Are you okay?"
The typical.
You can barely hear it, but it like the subtitles pop up. It was like,
"You okay?
What's going on here? You okay?" You know, and maybe I mean, it could have been like a translation thing. It could have been like, you know, it was supposed to be an intimate moment where the friendship, he like didn't want his friend to die or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just notably weird.
Yeah.
And funny. And a couple other final thoughts. Have you seen any Chaplin references throughout these films?
So I saw this when I was looking for our notes, and I haven't.
Okay.
Which is you know, surprising, because as soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, that's a direct correlation between the two. So what are we talking about, Brandon? And this is in the book again, right?
Yeah, and you don't have to read this whole thing, but just as much context as you need to give.
So as within The Good and Bad and the Ugly, Leone reworked a scene from Chaplin. So as one attempts to rob the bank in Ducky-Sucker, he discovers that it's full of political prisoners. And this is a reference to the scene in Modern Times where the tramp picks up like a red flag that's fallen off a lorry, and he just accidentally finds himself kind of leading a union of workers, you know, because he's chasing after the truck, kind of waving it in the air, and he kind of, all these people take after him. And like, it's obviously there, you know, and that is one of my favorite scenes in the film, is when he's unlocking the doors and opening them. And he's like, oh, more prisoners, you know. He's like, where's the gold? I found that really, like, that was really funny. Yeah,
there's a couple of he was like, Leone was apparently a huge Charlie Chaplin fan, and there was another reference in one of the movies that I read in the book. I forgot to write it down, but I'll have to find it later. But yeah, I was just wondering if you had noticed, because I know that you're a huge Chaplin fan. You've seen a lot more Chaplin than I have. I'll have to catch up with you at some point. But haven't you? You've read the biography too, haven't you?
Yeah, the huge. It's not Summers. I forget who wrote it, but it's, you know, a couple of 1,000 pages long.
Dang.
Yeah, that was my book of choice last year. And it's the thing with Chaplin. I mean, we're not going to get into it too much, but the thing with Chaplin is you're never sure of who it actually was. You know, that book is like 1,300 pages, and you're still walking away like, I don't really know who he was as a person. He's so problematic, and you know, he had 4 or 5 different personas that would come out at different times, and he's not black and white, you know.
Yeah.
But again, you make your own mind up. So
yeah.
But a master.
Well, yeah. So time. So that part of the show where we guess what we have rated it, what the other has rated it on Letterboxd. So this is, you know, this is up to 5 stars. We can do half stars as well. Letterboxd is a social media app for film lovers. So if you want to follow Lewis or I on there, he is at Walker Lewis 3007, and I am at Selman Scope. And you can see what we've been watching, what we rate things. But we're gonna try to guess what we rated this film.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that you rated this film 2 out of 5.
Close. It was 3.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, there were like the direction.
I lowballed
it. I've been really harsh on this one. The direction I really enjoyed, and the bits that I liked, I loved, and I feel that's like a trend with Leone. Like the things that work really well.
Yeah.
But 1 is just too much for me. I just can't. Like I don't think the story's there, and I just don't like him at all. Like I could not get on board. So. Yeah, it was a 3. I'm glad I've seen it. I don't think I'll be going back to, like I said, I don't think I'll be going back to it very often.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me guess you. So, I mean, you've been pretty high, I think, with like most of these films, but I know that it's like a love-hate relationship maybe with this, which is, I don't know if you love it yet. I'm going to say 3.5. I think it's less than Colossus of Rhodes.
It is 3.
My God, we're so alike, Brandon.
Dude, we rated it the same. And see, usually I rate things higher than you do. And so that's why I was like, if I'm rating it 3, I'm going to lowball it for you.
Yeah.
But we agree.
Yeah.
For once.
Yeah.
I think we agree on a lot of things.
Yeah, this happens more often. I mean, why 3?
Because I wanted to love it more, but I like I don't know, feels right.
Just didn't work on the same level as the others.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe if I do go back and watch it, I'll rate it higher on a second watch. But
I mean, just look at the 5 films that it's following for us.
Yeah,
it's not going to live up to those.
So as well as our personal ranking, we have been going through and ranking all of the Sergio Leone films as like a Film Church Radio, 1 through 7, 1 being greatest Leone film of all time. 7 being not the greatest. So right now, number 1 is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. 2 is Once Upon a Time in the West. 3 is For a Few Dollars More. 5 is Fistful of Dollars. I mean, I can't count. What did I skip?
I can't remember. I was ready for 6, I must admit.
I was like, wait, I skipped a number. So I'll just say at the top is The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, then Once Upon a Time in the West, and then For a Few Dollars More, then Fistful of Dollars, and then Colossus of Rhodes is number 5.
Yeah.
Which we like all of these movies. Like we liked Colossus of Rhodes a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm debating on if it's going to be at the bottom or if it's going to be above Colossus of Rhodes.
Personally, I cannot put it above Colossus of Rhodes.
Yeah.
I mean, Colossus of Rhodes isn't necessarily, it's not a great film, but it's so much more fun than this, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of sweeps you up. Rory Calhoun is a better leading man than Rod Steiger.
Standing and walking.
I know.
I think, when I think about it, like, when I think and think and think, I will probably go back to Colossus of Rhodes before I go back to this movie.
Yeah. I think as we were talking about hidden gems, Colossus of Rhodes is that. I don't think this is. This isn't, like, I've seen this film that not many other people have seen and it's really good.
Yeah.
It's...
And I couldn't recommend this movie to anyone.
No, I know. Yeah.
Like, unless you were like a very niche filmmaker and you were like doing shots of like close-ups of people's mouths and, you had some interesting music, I might be like, oh, you should watch this to like get some inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, again, if, like you said, the only way I think I would recommend it is if like a Tarantino fan or something like that, like, oh, I love Tarantino, I love his films. You'd be like, have you seen the Leone film that nobody else has seen, Duck You Sucker? Yeah. There's some really cool, like, explosions in
Yeah. But I can't think of any scenario where I'm like hanging out with a group of people and I'm like, let's put this on.
Yeah. 20 minutes in, you're right. See? It's great.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So, bottom of the list, number 6.
That's right.
Duck You Sucker.
And next week, ladies and gentlemen, what are we watching, Lewis?
We are watching the film that I'm most excited for, Once Upon a Time in America from 1984. A bit of a gap.
13 years.
Yeah. And I think I did a little bit of research. I know that there's like a European cut that's supposed to be the most complete cut, and it's like 3 hours, 45 minutes. So that's the one I'm going to be trying to track down. I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Yeah,
so
let me know if you find it anywhere.
I believe it must be the regular streaming one, or not, because one's only like 2.5 hours, I think, and that's the cut American version.
Yeah,
I can do some.
The one on Netflix. There's one on Netflix right now.
Okay,
and it's I want to say it's 3 hours and something.
Let me have a look. I'm pulling it up right now. So
yeah,
I can't do it on there. How does this on? But yeah, I mean,
3 hours and 49 minutes.
So that would be okay. So the one on Netflix would be, I believe, the European cut, which is what I read was the most complete. Yeah. So that's what we'll be watching. I'm glad that 3 hours and 48 minutes, whatever you said, is gonna be a chunk of time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big.
Yeah, our Letterboxd stats are going to be through the roof. Time watching movies after watching these 7. Oh, my God.
Get ready, folks. The last of the Leone series next Sunday.
What are we going to do after this, Brandon?
I don't know. We'll find out next week.
The John Ford season. Every John Ford film back to back.
I don't know if I could do that.
It made like 80, I think. So
yeah,
we'd be like really old and be like.
I am excited to do something new.
Me too. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah,
it's been nice. It's been a nice. This is a director I've been wanting to dive into, and and it's been great.
I just wish there was more variety. And I think that we can talk about this next week when we finish it out, because I'm sure that this is going to feel like a breath of fresh air for us both. But yeah, I just wish that there was a little bit more. I can't
imagine what he would be doing, what he would have done. I mean, he died pretty young, and he's the same age as Clint Eastwood. So and Clint Eastwood's still making movies.
Yeah.
So I don't, would have been interesting to see what else he would have done.
But I mean, that's going to be all next week. We're going to talk about what could have been, probably. So
yeah.
All
right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Again, you can find us on all the social medias at Film Church Radio. Please give us a follow and share the show. Let your friends know. Follow me on Letterboxd at Selman Scope and Lewis at Walker Lewis 3007 to keep up with what we've been watching. All of our back episodes are streaming. Check it out. And Lewis, I'm a citizen of the United States of America.
To me, you're just a naked son of a bitch.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
I tried to commit that time. Did you notice?
No, it was good. It was good. I was trying not to laugh, but that was amazing.
That's how I want my acting to be. People trying not to laugh.
The greatest compliment. All right, y'all. Go say some Film Church prayers and reach that cinematic enlightenment.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.